Okay, next we're going to talk about the Gaussian models. And so as we talked about at the beginning here, we said that, remember it had that bell-shaped curve on it, so it was normally distributed. Those are some keywords we're looking for in problems, because they're not going to usually come out and tell me, using the Gaussian model, they're going to say something about that this is normally distributed, or that it'll give us a bell-shaped curve. That is your hint that it's Gaussian model. But remember, we had talked about on the Gaussian model, you got to be careful of those y values, because it's dealing with a proportion or a probability. Excuse me. It's going to be somewhere between 0 and 1 for your y values. All right, on this slide here, the big thing to pay attention to is right here where it says the x value corresponding to the maximum y value of the function represents the average value of the independent variable. In this case, it would be x. So when we're trying to solve something, that is what we're looking for. We want that x value of the maximum. The hardest part of this problem is, one, making sure you type it in your calculator correctly, and two, finding the graph. So I'm going to give you some clues on how to do that, don't forget. All right, so in example 4, it says, in 2011, the SAT mathematics scores for high school graduates in the U.S. roughly followed the normal distribution given by that equation, where x is the SAT score for mathematics. Sketch a graph of this function, and from the graph, estimate the average SAT mathematics score. All right, so let's plug this into our calculator. A couple things to be careful of I saw in class. This 27,378 right here is up in the exponent, but it's not as high of an exponent as that little 2 right there next to it. So make sure when you do the 514 close the parentheses raised to the 2, come back down to the same level as that 514 is on, but don't go to the level of the 0.0034e. So be careful of that. Also, another thing was right here in that 27, that's 27,378. That's not a decimal, that is a comma. You don't have to put the comma, but don't put a decimal there. All right, so make sure you get this in your calculator correctly. And then we got to remember our window. So in our window, it tells me in the problem up here what my x's are going to be. It tells me that x is between or equal to 200 and 800. So when I go to set my window, I'm going to set my minimum x value to 200 and my maximum x value to that 800. And then remember we said, because we're dealing with probability, my y minimum, we're going to go ahead and set it 0, and my y max, we're going to go ahead and set it 1. Now this doesn't mean I'm definitely going to see my graph. It gives me a good shot of seeing it, plus it's setting my x's to where I need them to be, so that even if I can't see it by my y's, by using that zoom fit feature, it will show me the piece of the graph that I need to look at. All right, so once you've got your equation in your calculator, you got your window set, you need to graph this. And unfortunately, when you graph this one, you don't see anything. So if you don't see anything, remember you need to go to the zoom button and then go find zoom fit. Because we set our window, we're good with our x's, and it'll help us find our y's. So once you get this done and you go to look at your graph, it should look something like this here. Okay, we know that it should go from 200 to 800, and this goes from 0 to a little bit more than 0.003. All right, so there's our graph, but it wants us to find it says from the graph, estimate the average SAT mathematics score. Well, we just said on the previous slide that when we're looking for an average of something, we're looking for that x of that maximum value. So now we got to remember how to find the maximum value. Again, it's another calculator trick. So it tells us we're going to go to second, the calc button, which remember is trace, and we're looking for the maximum. When you click that, the first thing it's going to ask you is left bound with a question mark. That wants to know, hey, which is the left side of my maximum that I'm looking for? So you need to come somewhere over here and enter. That way you're saying, hey, this is the left side of my maximum. Then it asks you, what about the right side of your maximum? So arrow over somewhere, obviously on the right side, and hit enter. Then it asks you about guess. we don't worry about the guess, so just hit enter again, and it'll give you your maximum. And so remember, we're only after the x value, which is 514. Now, some of y'all are going to have 513.999999 something, and some of y'all are going to have 514.00000 something. But remember, it has to do with where did you put those points when you said it was on the left side or the right side. But that's no big deal because they're all 514. All right, so what we just found then is that the average SAT math score in 2011 was approximately 514, or it wasn't approximately, but it was 514. Now let's write that in a sentence. Okay, and once we got our sentence, there we go.